Howdy, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for another cruise. It is the week before Easter Sunday during the coronavirus pandemic. And I gotta tell you something interesting that I think is just so stinking cool. Earlier this week, I found out that our preacher and his wife are going to be, quote, playing the Easter Bunny, unquote, at some point Saturday evening for my kids. And it was really funny because I managed to speak with the preacher's wife this morning. We had a drive-in service at church, and I told her that I had found out what she was doing, and I appreciated it, but I gave her a tip on where to park and then walk in from there so she wouldn't risk setting off the dogs and kind of spoiling the surprise for the kids. They had a big Easter egg hunt planned at church that obviously got canceled, which makes perfect sense to me. I get it. But I know that there were families and kids that were looking forward to it, so I'm hoping that this is a good substitute for that. I hope that the kids enjoy it. I hope that the kids get a good Easter Sunday. I hope that they get a good Easter message out of all this. And I think it's just wonderful what our preacher and his wife are doing during this. I tell you what, I've seen a lot of things that have simultaneously destroyed and restored faith in humanity through all this. The hoarding of toilet paper, I think, is kind of silly. Don't get me wrong, I went out and bought some, and every time I've seen it on the shelves anywhere, I buy it. But it's not panicking, it's the fact that I've got 7 people that live in my house, and we use a lot of toilet paper. So, it's, I think that people abiding by the social distancing things without too much issue, I think that's a great thing that's happening right now. People coming together to help out the elderly. One of the local newspapers did an article on this. It could have been, well, out of all the people I know that are currently expecting, it was the first baby born in our area once the lockdowns had hit, and they had a couple little minor medical scares. They ended up staying in the hospital a little longer than normal. Nothing ended up coming of it. They have no idea what exactly was wrong, but they're confident it won't happen again. Well, anyway, when the baby came home, a parade of people, one at a time, walked up to their house, their front door, said hi through the screen door, got to ooh and ah at the baby, which I totally get. I wanted to go do that yesterday, but they had had a busy day and were trying to get him down for a nap. So, and I know that they were expecting, people to be able to come by the hospital and go see him there and all that. And there's a lot of disappointment in stuff being so abnormal through a lot of this. I feel sorry for anybody that's birthday has happened during all this lockdown. It didn't affect me in a big way, but I didn't get to have my birthday dinner that I wanted. I wanted to go out to eat someplace, and with my wife working, that didn't happen. So I got to go out to lunch with my kids and my mother, but didn't get to go out with my wife for dinner and family because she got off after all the restaurants were locked down by mandate of our governor. much on my mind today. Our church is just doing a Facebook live stream and a drive-in style service. We had quite a bit of people there the past couple Sundays for the drive-in service. It does come with its own set of challenges to pull off. It's not the easiest thing to do, but it's far from the worst thing we've ever had to do for church. It's weird. It brings a different feel to the service. It's weird, it's more difficult, but it's enjoyable in its own unique way. So we have even mentioned having a live stream worship service, or a drive-in worship service after this lockdown is lifted, just like maybe on the anniversary of things going back to normal. It's something that we were talking about, and it's fun. It's a fun challenge. Have everything outside set up, ready to go, sound check everything, practice, and then be ready for a worship service before everybody shows up, and then you got to tear everything down and store it back indoors afterwards. I toasted a coil earlier. I bumped my watts up too high on accident. It's terrible. Tell you a funny story about my dad real quick. To put this into context, I've got to give a little bit of backstory on some of the things. Years ago, shortly after I was born, he became a traveling salesman. Did fairly well at it. And then he basically relearned how to do his job with the same contacts, but doing a better job at it. When long distance fees went the way of the dinosaur, he started doing over the phone sales. And he was able to make his customer base a lot bigger than what it had been by doing over the phone sales. And a lot of times he would set reminders to call certain people on certain dates, 3-6 months out, whatever, and follow up and so a lot of times he would call and, I need 4 more, whatever you sent me last time. He could look all that up. And so a lot of his business changed. And when he would do phone sales, the way he would do it, my sister and I were homeschooled. So he had to get out of the house so as to not be either bothering us or being bothered by us. And so he converted whatever vehicle he had at the time into an office. He would take a couple briefcases. He had a couple samples in the event someone wanted him to come by and visit. He could set up appointments for that instead of just dropping in at random. But more often than not, his days consisted of finding a nice, often shaded, secluded spot to park his truck, and make phone calls. And he did that for better part of 10 years, I'm thinking. So there was decent business in doing that. Well, when he would park, he'd always try to park someplace that wasn't busy, someplace that was pretty nature scene wise. So he wouldn't necessarily park just any old where. But anyway, one time he was parked out in a public area, big open soccer field, lots of trees and a creek in the background. So very pretty area. And he parked out there quite a bit. He was watching this cat, a feral cat, just running around, and it was trying to kill a bird. That's what it was after. And so it's hunkered down in the high grass, and my dad had seen it go over there real slow and hunker down, but he could see it because he was in his truck. And he was sitting there, and he was watching birds that were coming by, picking on just food scraps that had been left out, French fries, potato chips, whatever. And so he was trying to hide close enough where he could jump out and pounce a bird before they could fly off and the cat get himself a meal. Well, he's hunkered down, and this bird comes up, and he's singing and happy and what have you, and the cat goes to pounce. The bird sees him just in the nick of time, flies away, and he said, "You want to know what happened?" I said, "I have no idea." He's like, "That cat got so mad he went and licked himself." And I think that there's kind of an interesting lesson in that. A lot of people, when they don't get their way or their plans don't work out the way they want, they kick themselves or those around them and beat themselves or those around them up verbally or even physically. And things still happen. I'm sure that cat probably found him a mouse or a bird or something. Nature has been going on for forever. And they're, give you a good case in point. Several years back, I was doing the math on certain cars that I could buy. The car that I had started to become slightly problematic. And there were some signs coming from certain things that you might have to spend some money on this car, some big money on this car soon. And it was getting up there in miles, so it was to the point where it wasn't worth it to do it. And I just got kind of tired of it, and it was a big V8. I was driving all sorts of miles, getting lousy gas mileage, having to burn premium and all this. So I'm like, I wonder if I could do better. And so I started looking online at different vehicles to buy. And I've always wanted a Mustang. I don't really care what it is. I've always wanted one. And I got to looking and figuring, and this one gets this one will cost this much a week to drive back and forth to work. The payment would be about this much. The insurance would be about this much. Figuring out total cost of ownership kind of stuff. And I looked at a low mile 2013 or 14 V6 Mustang. And I got to drive one of those. They weren't bad. They were quick enough. They were fun enough to drive. Made a good enough noise. Got good enough fuel economy. And I'm like, man, that's not really that bad. The payment would be about where, in the ballpark with some of these other vehicles. The fuel mileage isn't that far off. It only costs this much more to drive. And, somewhat justifying this car purchase for one that I've always wanted. Man, it'd just be fantastic, And I got an insurance quote. And I will just say I was wrong on every front. And there was another thing about it, too, that made it not work for me, but that's not... If the insurance would have been ballpark, I might have figured out a way to justify it, but it didn't work. And so I just, darn, gotta get something else anyway. And so I did. And I got the car I'm driving right now. It's not exactly what I wanted as far as if I could pick any vehicle and have zero consequences from it. But it works pretty good for what I do and all the miles that I drive. Because I've got a lifetime mile per gallon average of 36 miles a gallon. I'm currently getting 39. I've put a boatload of miles on this in the year and a half I've had it, and so I'm glad to have a vehicle that's good on fuel. But it's not something that bothered me. I didn't get exactly what I wanted for my wife's vehicle. I got close enough. We're both very happy with it. And in time, I'm sure I'll be able to get a toy. Whether it's a Mustang, an older Vet, something else I've always wanted, a street legal dune buggy. And that's cheap enough you can pay cash for, and they're super cheap to work on. But I've always wanted one of those, so I've always wanted a toy, and I know a Mustang's a toy. It's not a practical car. You don't have a lot of trunk space. You have zero rear leg room. You've only got room for 4, not 5. The fuel mileage is 6 to 8 miles a gallon worse than what I drive right now. I could live with it. But insurance, so anyway, just keep that in mind when something doesn't go quite the way you wanted it to or expected it to. Getting upset and throwing a hissy fit, sometimes it's good to blow off a little steam, but it accomplishes exactly nothing. You get nothing done except maybe punch a hole in, except maybe make yourself some more projects by patching the hole that you punched in the drywall. So, anyway, that's what I got. A little bit of coronavirus optimism about humanity, and don't get all irritated when something doesn't go right. That's what I got. Y'all take care. Stay safe. Like, share, comment, subscribe, notification bell, questions, answers, comments, concerns, complaint department, everything else. Take care. And have a good Easter when it rolls around, even though it's definitely going to be different.